What's going on, everyone? This is Badass Revere, and today I'll be taking a look at the Marvel Legends Infinite Series. I think it's Infinite Series anyways, but it's the 12-inch Captain America figure. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with this figure. I didn't know if I was gonna like these 12-inch figures a whole lot or not, and the $50 price point kind of turns me away slightly, just because you know, these things are pretty expensive just for being upscaled versions of Marvel Legends. However, I do kind of see where the money is going to, because the sculpt on this guy is pretty nice. However, I do wish there was a little bit more paint detailing. It seems kind of plain for being a figure like this. I feel there should also be quite a bit of paint work that went into them. Not that the paint's bad or anything, I just think maybe some like shading and stuff would have been kind of nice. Maybe a little bit of a wash going through him. But overall, he does look really nice. I'm really happy that I picked him up. I do want to get the Iron Man, and I'm not really sure if I want to get Spider-Man. I don't really want to pick up like every single figure that comes out of this wave or this type of series, because that'll add up pretty quickly. Just the 3 figures alone, that's $150 plus taxes, assuming that you buy them at retail. But I've noticed on Amazon they are dropping in price actually. So it's actually like they're like $40 on Amazon, which is actually a lot better. I think that's a better price point in my opinion, just because they're just 12-inch figures instead of the regular 6, so they're just basically upscaled versions. And while there is quite a bit of you know, detail and sculpt in this, I feel as though the Captain America that we got that's based on this design, the Marvel Now Captain America, has pretty much the same amount of sculpting work, like especially in this top area where it's more like a chainmail. Granted, that one doesn't have like the nicely sculpted chainmail in this part. It doesn't have the little zipper details and stuff like that over here. But I mean, $40 I think would be $45 at the most, I think would be a good deal for this guy. But then again, I don't know, it's hard to say because this one does come with accessories. Granted, I could definitely live without some of these accessories, which is kind of a bummer to say, but it's like sometimes you want the accessories, but then they're just kind of like, I could live without this. Like, I don't typically like unmasked heads. It is nice to have. However, for Captain America, I mean, usually I like to keep his helmet on. Honestly, what I think they should have done is they should have made it so that way, you know, he was already unmasked, but you could stick this like the mask on over his head, so that way it could be like, oh, well, you want to just take the mask off, well, there you go, it's all good. So you know, it's kind of but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And I also feel like maybe that $10 is going towards the box here, because the box is pretty nice in my opinion. Pretty nice looking. It's holographic, which we haven't really seen before with Marvel Legends or any kind of figure by Hasbro anyways. So it is nice. I do really like the packaging, but if that's what the extra $10 is going towards, who knows. I would prefer just plain packaging. But honestly, I do feel like the $50 is all in this, because the sculpting is really nice. I really like the head sculpt. Let's just go from head to toe. Head sculpt is pretty nice. He's got some really nice detailing. The straps have some nice sculpt work going on. There's little lines going on in between them. The buckles, while they're not painted, that's not too big of an issue, just because that'd be a really hard thing to kind of get a little bit of paint on and probably be smudgy, to be honest. The A, it looks a little bit off-center to me, and it does look like the A has a little bit of a smudge on it, but the 2 wings on the side, they look really nice. The head sculpt is very nicely detailed. A lot of you can tell like the sculpt or the mask is a different piece from the face. It's not just like painted on over the face, which is really nice. The skin tone, it's okay. He looks a little bit he looks a little pinkish to me, but that's okay. The eyes are alright. He just kind of has this really like blank stare, like all hope in the world is gone, and he doesn't give a shit anymore. But it does look nice. Underneath the neck piece here, you wouldn't really see this too well, but there is some nice detail or sculpting going on a little bit. It's not too crazy, but it is sculpted with kind of like it's kind of a texture. I wouldn't say it's chainmail or anything, but it's a kind of a cool texture, like it's a shirt or something that he's got on underneath. But that's really cool. He's got these two shoulder things here, which are not too terribly detailed, but they are sculpted on as well. They're sculpted going over, and then you can kind of see like a little zipper at the top here, and you can tell that like this piece here is probably separate from the rest of this here. So this is probably like a shirt underneath, and then he puts this on over that, and it's like it'd be like a separate piece of armor, which is really cool. Coming down to the shoulder pads, they are on a hinge joint, which are kind of bulging out of his arms. I don't recall seeing his suit like this, but I've heard that this is how it looked when the first series of Marvel Now came out, and that's what his suit looked like. It had like these little armor pads on. I don't know if they stuck out like this or not. I would assume that they probably just laid over his arms like they normally would, but I can see why they did this, made it kind of a separate piece from the actual arm, is so that it wouldn't hinder the articulation too much. However, it does still kind of get in the way, even when you get down to here. So his arms really don't even go out that far, unless you were to, well, even then, that's about as far out as his arm can go, just because of this thing. And while it is on a hinge, it really only hinges like up and down, and that's just to accommodate for his arm to go out that far. So I almost would have preferred that maybe they just didn't have this, and they just kind of rounded out the ball joint to be like a normal, or not a ball joint, the shoulder, just to be like a normal shoulder piece. That would have been fine with me. And you know, if they didn't have the stars on there, not a big deal, because I think the 6-inch Marvel Legends one doesn't have that, and that one works fine with me. So while the extra detail is nice, it does kind of hinder articulation. Coming down to his torso area, like I said, it's chainmail, so that's really cool looking. The texture on it's very nice. He's got some like lines kind of divoted into the sculpt there. I don't know why it's like that, but it does look cool. If you kind of look underneath his kind of armpit area, there's some gray sculpted area here. It kind of looks like it's bolted on from like the sculpt, which I don't know if maybe he needs to screw his armor in or something, but it looks like it has bolts going on in there. And I'm sorry if this is kind of hard to look, my lighting kind of sucks, but as you can see, there's like little dots right there, which I would assume is supposed to be like screws or something. Coming around, it's the exact same on the back. He's got the star here on both sides of his chest, which are pretty much just molded in I think they're just molded in that kind of acrylic, or not acrylic, but that kind of swirly looking plastic that they do with figures, which I think looks actually pretty nice. Some people I could see probably would want it to be more white than gray, but in my opinion it looks pretty nice. And just to let you guys know now, that pops out in order to peg his shield into his back. And what you do to let that out is press the star in the front. It's just a button and it pops it out. It is kind of annoying though, because it'll pop out pretty easily. It doesn't take a whole lot to push it in, and then it doesn't take much for that thing just to go flying out like you just saw there. But it is kind of annoying, because you could just be handling him, trying to look at him and pose him, and you'll just accidentally press that button all the time. So that's something you got to watch out for, just so you don't lose it. Again, this front star piece is just kind of like that swirly gray plastic that they do on figures when they mold them. Doesn't bother me. I think it looks pretty nice. Looking at his arms, the arms and have some sculpting that kind of line up with the rest of his shoulder right here, so that's very nice, as well as on the back. And then it's sculpted kind of around the bicep to differentiate like this from the white, which is nice because a lot of times they just kind of paint that over and it looks crappy, but this is nice because they sculpted it, which I think all figures that have like different colored sleeves and whatnot should be like that, so that way it's not kind of clunky looking. But the white over here does have some sculpting in it to make it kind of feel like it's chainmail, which is really nice. It's really nice white paint. It looks really crisp. And while there is no shading in it, I do wish there was kind of a bit of like a wash going through it, but it does look good just like that. And it looks really nice. Coming down to his forearms, it's he's got his gloves on, which when we take a look at the back side of it, it's got that same kind of chainmail feel on the inside, and then it's got the straps going around for the arm guards, because this is like a separate piece from this other part. And then the buckles are painted, which is nice. And then you go up to his hands and it's still got that like chainmail effect. And then on the front side, it's got like it's got some padding on it and some like I'd say like knuckle dusters or something like that, kind of like sculpted into his knuckles, which looks really cool. I really like the way his hands look, strangely enough. And then speaking of hands, he comes with two pairs. He comes with two open hands. That would be to, if you want to have his shield on this side or this side, you could go either way. And then he's got two fist hands. So that way you could if you wanted to, he could just have two fist hands. But I will say, getting into the shield part of the figure, I'm not a big fan how they did this. They made it so that way you have to put his arm through the sleeves, but the way it works is instead of just like pegging into like a hole or something, they go into these like slots, and it's really kind of hard to get them in there when it's kind of pressed up against his arm like that. But basically you have to get the things to like fit into these things, and then they kind of just hook on there, and it's effective. However, it's kind of annoying to try and get on there because you're trying to, this thing gets in the way, and this is what's supposed to be used to plug into his back. So that kind of gets in the way when you're trying to put this top one up, because you want to make sure you get it in there nice and snug, or else it's gonna pop out really easily. And where the problem comes in at is these are loose, like this thing is a separate piece, so really you're kind of just trying to get it to wedge. You're trying to keep it tight against his forearm here, without making it go up where it wouldn't fit. And when you're trying to do that, his arm, it'll slip down and cause the thing to pop out. The hand is not too big of a deal because he can actually hold the thing, but like I said, it's really kind of a challenge sometimes to put this thing in there where it's not gonna pop out. And then you have to kind of be careful when you're trying to actually pose him with his shield, because you could easily just pop this thing out right out of its little peg, and then you'll have to finagle with it again, and it's just kind of annoying. I do kind of wish either they would have just gone with their regular formula of just something that would have clipped onto his arm, or if it was the straps were actually connected to the shield somehow, and then or even if they pegged in, they just had little pegs that you pegged in there. I can see why they did it this way, but in my opinion it's not very good. It's really going to be a pain in the butt when you're trying to pose him, but as long as you're careful, I think it'll be okay. But to me, it's a little bit annoying. And while we're talking about the shield, we'll talk about it real quick. It's a really good size. I definitely am glad that they made it a pretty large shield, unlike the 6-inch figures. Sorry, my cat is trying to get in the way again. it's pretty big, so I feel like it's a good enough size that it's going to actually protect him, whereas the 6-inch figures, they usually are really small, and you would think that, oh, it's no problem to, you know, shoot him or something. Sorry. Had to deal with the cat again. So yeah, I'm glad the shield is a pretty good size. It's pretty much just molded red plastic, and then they painted the inside gray, and then the inside blue, and then the gray again. It looks really nice. Actually, it almost looks like it's like 3 separate pieces that they put together, just because of how the metal or the gray looks around it, because it has kind of like that swirly look to it, which is nice. I really like the way the shield came out. Pretty good size. It's pretty hard plastic, so it doesn't really bend or anything like that. It'll pretty much stay, it hopefully would stay in that in the shape that it's in and won't warp. So I'm happy about that. And like I said, it just pegs into the back of here like it would on a normal 6-inch figure. Getting to his lower torso area, he does have, like I said, some more sculpted detail. He's got, you can see down the center that there's like a zipper there, which is really cool. I think it's a really nice touch to put in there to make it kind of show that it's like a separate piece that he just kind of like wears. It's like separate from this thing, and that it's just kind of like a jacket he wears or something like that. So that's really nice. The nice chainmail, I love the colors. The red and the white look really good. All the colors are pretty consistent with each other. I would say, however, that this section here is a little bit darker red than on his forearms and his boots, but that's okay with me. It doesn't look too terribly bad, especially when you're getting it in kind of like the light. It doesn't look too bad, but just something to let you know. Same on the back, it's got the same kind of detailing, so that's really good. Looking at the belt's nicely detailed. He's got some line work going on in the belt to look like it just kind of clicks together. The pouches are nicely sculpted with some more of that textured feel to it, which is really nice. Not a whole lot of detail in terms of paint on it though, however. They're pretty much just brown. There's no like gray for the pouch to kind of show that like this is where you would open it up at, but that's no big deal to me. Coming down to his legs, he's got the sculpted padding over here, which looks really nice. He's got 2 little back pockets to keep his wallet in, although they do look like they are a bit small, so I hope he doesn't have a whole lot of money, or, you know, George Costanza, where he keeps like every little thing in his pocket, because that definitely wouldn't fit in those pockets. But on the inner part of his legs, he's got some more sculpt work going on here. Looks very nice, and it is sculpted on the outer part of it to differentiate from the actual leg, to kind of show that that's more you know, armor or padding or something like that. The legs, in the blue, it's pretty much the same as up top where his neck is in this section. It's detailed with like a texture, but it's not like chainmail. It's more of like some kind of textured type of pants, I guess. However you want to say that. It's not chainmail, but it's not like just denim or something like that. Not that he would be running around in denim, but it is nice feel. The only real place that we get some kind of paint detailing is like on his knee pads here, which have like some gray scuffs on there, which actually look really nice. Although I feel like at that point it kind of takes away from the figure, because it's like he's got scuffed up knees, but then the rest of his suit is like perfectly clean. I wish they would either have, you know, put some more paint work into him to make him look like he's a little bit more dirty or detailed or something. I mean, I do like this. However, it's just kind of strange going from like having scuffed knee pads instead of like just completely gray ones, and then having like a completely clean outfit. So not that that's a major deal breaker or anything, it's just something to notice. I just thought it was kind of strange that they would do that, but then on the rest of him, he's not really battle damaged or scraped up or anything. The back of the knees are really nicely, I like the way they sculpted that, because they sculpted the back of the leg joint to fit in with this back part of his knee pads. So that's nicely painted and sculpted. Coming down, oh wow, I just dropped it right on his head, and his little thing popped off. All right, so we'll take this off. Maybe not. Never mind. Coming down to the boots. Boots are pretty much the same as like his upper arm guards here. They're nicely sculpted, and it's a lot like the 6-inch version. It just has a little bit more of that kind of texture detail, like the chain, like it's chainmail or something. This kind of has like that. I don't know what the material would be, but it definitely does kind of remind me of like how boots, some combat boots are, and how they have like this like mesh behind them. So that's really cool. And then he's got like the leg guards here. Strangely enough, I'm thinking, I guess maybe the boots are just made like this, but they don't have like any kind of straps. So I guess the boots just kind of have this leg guard section here that would probably be used to protect his shins, or his shins and whatnot. But the back of it's just kind of like a mesh kind of material. He does have some shoelaces, which is cool, although it does look like they're kind of tucked into the thing, so it's like maybe he doesn't have to tie his shoes or something like that. But the boots are really cool. But like I said, not a whole lot, there's no like detailed shading or anything in it, but the texture and the sculpt is pretty nice. So that is it for this guy in terms of sculpting. We'll go over articulation real quick. The head is on and this is all pretty much what you would expect for a Marvel Legends figure. The head is on a ball peg and a hinge, so you can look up quite a bit and look down 360 degrees. Arms can go out about that far due to the shoulder pads, which is still a pretty good, decent amount. The shoulder pads themselves, like I said, they move, they hinge up and down. His arms can rotate 360 degrees. He's got bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, a hinge in the wrist, as well as a swivel. He has like a upper torso hinge, but a lot like with everyone else that you've probably saw reviews of, it doesn't seem like it wants to stay anywhere, and it does seem really scary because I feel like it will snap if I push it too far. So this is kind of pointless to have, although it is kind of nice because it makes it look, and that's what I'm thinking, maybe that's what they did, was it just to make it look like it's a separate armor piece. Whether that was intentional or not, it doesn't bother me too much, but just know that this doesn't really do much of anything. So he doesn't really have like a torso swivel, so he can't really like move his torso different ways. But he does have an ab crunch, which goes forward quite a bit and back. You can't really tell that it's there, which is nice because they just kind of sculpted around it. The way they sculpted it was really nice, so it's almost like you can't tell that it's there. Like I said, no bicep swivel or no waist swivel, but his legs go forward and back, in and out, rotates at the upper part of the thigh, double jointed knees, a rotation in the boot, and a pivot and ankle rocker in the foot. So tons of articulation. It is slightly hindered by the sculpt, but that is okay with me because I don't really think that I would put him in too crazy of a pose. I like the way you can pose him now, I think is fine. I don't think there's any pose you couldn't get him in that's not too crazy, but these shoulder pads do kind of hinder it, and not having a waist swivel can kind of get in the way. I didn't talk about these two pieces, I just kind of briefly mentioned them. The head sculpt's okay, the hair looks nice. I think it has a little bit of a wash going through it. It kind of reminds me of the old Toy Biz Captain America, or Steve Rogers head from the Series 6, or whichever, the Face Off series, whichever one had like the unmasked Captain America. That's kind of what this reminds me of. And he does come with this separate helmet that he can hold, although you can't put him on. You can't put this mask over this face, which I think would have been cooler idea is if they just, gave him the head like this, but then just gave him a helmet and you just put the helmet over his head. But I can see that being kind of a problem sculpt wise, because then his head would be ginormous. But either way, I still think like this head looks fine just the way it is, and I'm not too big on unmasked fate heads for the most part. But would I recommend you buy this? Yeah, if you don't have, if you really want to get like a 12-inch figure, I'd say get this one or Iron Man. I don't know if I'm going to pick up those two yet. I think I might pick up Iron Man just because he seems pretty cool. But definitely, if I had to pick one of the three, if I was only going to get one, I'd definitely say Captain America, because he's probably my favorite. And then I think out of the three, he has probably the best look and detail. But it's really up to you. I think it's worth the buy. Go on Amazon though, because it is cheaper. If you can find it cheaper for $50, that's even better, because while it is a nice figure, I don't think a $50 price point is warranted, especially since he doesn't really have a whole lot of paint detailing. The sculpt though does kind of make up for that, because he is very nicely sculpted. So it's kind of up to you guys, but I think it's a pretty good figure, and it was definitely worth the buy. So anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Check out more figure reviews coming up in the future, and I'll talk to you guys later.